The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. Chapter 7 Hypothesis. There will be a significant positive correlation between the amount of sunscreen poured in my hands and the intensity of my desire to murder Anne. Tom's report was about a third done and sitting tight at 34 pages, single spaced Arial 11 point. No justification. It was 11 am and Olive had been working in the lab since about 5, analyzing peptide samples, writing down protocol notes, taking covert naps while the PCR machine ran, when Greg barged in, looking absolutely furious. It was unusual, but not too unusual. Greg was a bit of a hothead to begin with, and grad school came with a lot of angry outbursts in semi-public places, usually for reason that Olive was fully aware would appear ridiculous to someone who had never stopped foot in academia. They are making me TA, Intro to Bio, for the fourth time in a row. The paper I need is behind a paywall. I had a meeting with my supervisor and accidentally called her mom. Greg and Olive shared an advisor, Dr. Aslan, and while they had always gotten along fine, they had never been particularly close. Olive had hoped by picking a female advisor to avoid some of the nastiness that was so often directed at women in STEM. Unfortunately, she had still found herself in an all male lab, which was a less than ideal environment. That was why, when Greg came in, slammed the door, and then threw a folder on his bench, Olive was not sure what to do. She watched him sit down and began to sulk. Chase, another lab mate, followed him inside a moment later with an uneasy expression and started gingerly patting his back. Olive looked longingly at her RNA samples. Then she stepped closer to Greg's bench and asked, "What's wrong?" She had expected the answer to be the production of my reagent has been discontinued or my p-value is zero point 0.06 and grad school was a mistake, but now it's too late to back out of it because my self-worth is unbreakably tied to my academic performance and what would even be left of me if I decided to drop out. Instead, what she got was, "Your stupid boyfriend is what's wrong." By now, the fake dating had been going on for over 2 weeks. Olive didn't startle anymore when someone referred to Adam as her boyfriend. Still, Greg's words were so unexpected and full of venom that she couldn't help but answer. "Who?" "Carlson." He spat the name out like a curse. "Oh. He is on Greg's dissertation committee," Chase explained in a significantly milder tone, not quite meeting Olive's eyes. "Oh, right. This could be bad. Very bad. What happened?" "He failed my proposal." "Shit." Olive bit into her lower lip. "I'm sorry, Greg. This is going to set me back a lot. It will take me months to revise it, all because Carlson had to go and nitpick. I didn't even want him on my committee. Dr. Aslan forced me to add him because she is so obsessed with his stupid computational stuff." Olive chewed on the inside of her cheek, trying to come up with something meaningful to say and failing miserably. "I'm really sorry." "Olive, do you guys talk about this stuff?" Chase asked out of the blue, eyeing her suspiciously. "Did he tell you he wasn't going to pass Greg?" "What? No, I talked to him for exactly 15 minutes a week and okay, I have kissed him twice and I sat on his lap once, but it's just that. And Adam, he speaks very little. I actually wish he spoke more since I know nothing about him and I had liked to know at least something. No, he doesn't. I think it would be against regulations if he did." "God." Greg slammed his palm against the edge of the bench, making her jump. He's such a dick. What a sadistic piece of shit. Olive opened her mouth too. To do what precisely? To defend Adam. He was a dick. He had seen him be a dick in full action. Maybe not recently and maybe not to her, but if she had wanted to count on her fingers the number of acquaintances who had ended up in tears because of him, well, she would need both her hands and then her toes, maybe borrow some of Chase's too. Did he say why at least? What you have to change? Everything. He wants me to change my control condition and add another one, which is going to make the project 10 times more time consuming. And the way he said it, his air of superiority, he is so arrogant. Well, it was no news really. Olive scratched her temple, trying not to sigh. It sucks. I'm sorry. He repeated once more, at a loss for anything better and genuinely feeling for Greg. Yeah, well, he stood and walked around his chair, coming to a stop in front of Olive. You should be. He froze. Surely she must have misheard. Excuse me? You are his girlfriend? I really am not, but even if she had been, Greg, I'm only dating him. I'm not him. How would I have anything to do with you? Are fine with all of this? With him acting like that, like an asshole on a power trip. You don't give a shit about the way he treats everyone in the program. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to stomach being with him. At his tone, she took a step back. Chase lifted his hand in a pace-making gesture, coming to stand between them. Hey, now let's not. I am not the one who failed you, Greg. Maybe, but you don't care that half of a department lives in terror of your boyfriend either. Olive felt anger bubbling up. That is not true. I am able to separate my professional relationships and my personal feelings for him because you don't give a shit about anyone but yourself. That is unfair. What am I supposed to do? Get him to stop failing people. Get him? Olive sputtered. Greg, how is this a rational response for you to have about Adam's failing you? Ah, Adam, is it? She gritted her teeth. Yes, Adam. What would I call my boyfriend to better please you? Professor Carlson? If you were a half decent ally to any of the grads in the department, you would dump your fucking boyfriend. How do you even realize how little sense you are? No reason to finish her sentence since Greg was storming out of the lab and slamming the door behind him, clearly uninterested in anything Olive might have wanted to add. She ran a hand down her face, unsettled by what had just happened. He's not. He doesn't really mean it. Not about you, at least, Chase said while scratching his head. A nice reminder that he had been standing there in the room for the entirety of this conversation, front row seat. It was going to take maybe 15 minutes before everyone in the program knew about it. Greg needs to graduate in the spring with his wife so that they can find post-docs together. They don't want to live apart. She nodded. She had not known, but she could imagine some of her anger dissipated. Yeah, well, being horrible to me isn't going to make his thesis work go and faster. She didn't add. Chase sighed. It's not personal, but you have to understand that it's weird for us because Carlson, maybe he wasn't on any of your committee, but you must know the kind of guy he is, right? She was unsure how to respond. And now you guys are dating, and Chase shrugged with a nervous smile. It shouldn't be a matter of taking sides, but sometimes it can feel like it. Chase's words lingered for the rest of the day. Olive thought about them as she ran her mice through her experimental protocol, and then later, while she tried to figure out what to do with those two outliers, that made her finding tricky to interpret. She mulled it over while biking home, hot wind warming her cheeks and ruffling her hair, and while eating two slices of the saddest pizza ever. Malcolm had been on a health kick for a week now, something about cultivating his gut microbiome, and refused to admit that cauliflower crust did not taste good. Among her friends, Malcolm and Jeremy had had unpleasant dealing with Adam in the past, but after the initial shock, they didn't seem to hold Olive's relationship with him against her. She had not concerned herself too much with the feeling of other grads. She had always been a bit of a loner, and focusing on the opinion of people she barely interacted with seemed like a wasteful use of time and energy. Still, maybe there was a glimmer of truth in what Greg had said. Adam had been anything but a jerk to Olive, but did accepting his help while he acted horribly towards her fellow grads make her a bad person? Olive lay on her unmade bed, looking up at the glow in the dark stars. It had been more than 2 years since she had borrowed Malcolm's stepladder and carefully stuck them on the ceiling. The glue was starting to give out, and the large comet in the corner by the window was going to fall off any day. Without letting herself think it through too much, she rolled out of bed and rummaged inside the pocket of her discarded jeans until she found her cell phone. She hadn't used Adam's number since he had given to her a few days ago. If anything comes up or you need to cancel, just give me a call. It's quicker than an email. When she tapped the blue icon under his name, a white screen popped up. A blank slate with no history of previous messages. It gave Olive an odd rush of anxiety, so much so that she typed the text with one hand while biting the thumbnail on the other. Olive, did you just fail, Greg? Adam was never on his phone, never. Whenever Olive had been in his company, she had not seen him check it ever once. Ever though, with the lab as big as his, he probably got about 30 new emails every minute. Trust me, she didn't even know that he owned a cell phone. Maybe he was a weird modern day hippie and hated technology. Maybe he had given her his office landline number and that's why he had told her to call him. Maybe he didn't know how to text, which meant that Olive was never going to get an answer back. Her palm vibrated. Adam. Olive? It occurred to her that when Adam had given her his number, she had neglected to give hers in return, which meant that he had no way of knowing who was texting him now. And the fact that he had guessed correctly revealed an almost preternatural intuition. Damn him. Olive. Yep, me. Olive. Did you fail Greg Cohen? I ran into him after his meeting. He was very upset at me because of you, because of this stupid thing we are doing. There was a pause of a minute or so in which Olive reflected Adam might very well be crackling evilly at the idea of all the pain he had caused Greg. Then he answered, Adam, I can't discuss that grad dissertation meetings with you. Olive sighed, exchanging a loaded look with the stuffed box Malcolm had gotten her for passing her qualifying examinations. Olive, I'm not asking you to tell me anything. Greg already told me, not to mention that I am the one taking the heat for it since I'm your girlfriend. Olive, girlfriend? 3 dots appeared at the bottom of her screen. Then they disappeared. And then they appeared again, and then finally Olive's phone vibrated. Adam, committee don't fail student. They fail their proposals. She snorted, half wishing he could hear her. Olive, yeah, well, tell it to Greg. Adam, I have. I explained the weaknesses in his study. He will revise his proposal accordingly and then I will sign off on his dissertation. Olive, so you admit that you are the one behind the decision to fail him? Olive, or whatever to fail his proposal. Adam, yes. In this current state, the proposal is not going to produce finding of scientific value. Olive bit the inside of her cheek, staring at her phone and wondering if continuing this conversation was a horrible idea. If what he wanted to say was too much, then she remembered the way Greg had treated her earlier, muttered, "Fuck it," and typed, Olive, don't you think that maybe you could deliver that feedback in a nicer way? Adam, why? Olive, because if you had, maybe he wouldn't be upset now. Adam, I still don't see why. Olive, seriously? Adam, it's not my job to manage your friend's emotions. He is in a PhD program, not grad school. He will be inundated by feedback he doesn't like for the rest of his life if he pursues academia. How he chooses to deal with it in his own business. Olive, still, maybe you could try not to look like you enjoyed delaying his graduation. Adam, this is irrational. The reason his proposal need to be modified is that in his current state it's setting him up for failure. Me and the rest of the committee are giving him feedback that will allow him to produce useful knowledge. He is a scientist in training. He should value guidance, not be upset by it. Olive gritted his teeth as she typed her response. Olive, you must know that you fail more people than anyone else. And your criticism is needlessly harsh, as in immediately drop out of grad school and never look back harsh. You must know how grads perceive you. Adam, I don't. Olive, antagonistic and unapproachable. And that was sugarcoating it. You are a dick, Olive meant. Except that I know you cannot be, and I cannot figure out why you are so different with me. I am absolutely nothing to you, so it doesn't make any sense that you have a personality transplant every time you are in my presence. The three dots at the bottom of the screen bounced for 10 seconds, 20, 30, a whole minute. Olive reread her last text and wondered if this was it. If she had finally gone too far. Maybe he was going to remind her that being insulted over text at 9 pm on a Friday night was not part of this fake dating agreement. Then a blue bubble appeared, filling up her entire screen. Adam, I'm doing my job, Olive, which is not to deliver feedback in a pleasant way or to make the department grads feel good about themselves. My job is to form rigorous researchers who won't publish useless or harmful crap that will set back our field. Academia is cluttered with horrible science and mediocre scientists. I couldn't care less about how your friends perceive me as long as their work is up to standard. If they want to drop out when told that it's not, then so be it. Not everyone has what it takes to be a scientist, and those who don't should be weeded out. She stared at her phone, hating how unfeeling and callous he sounded. The problem was Olive understood exactly where Greg was coming from because she had been in similar situations, perhaps not with Adam, but her overall experience in STEM academia had been punctuated by self doubt, anxiety, and a sense of inferiority. She had barely slept the 2 weeks before he qualified exams, often wondering if her fear of public speaking was going to prevent her from having a career, and she was constantly terrified of being the stupidest person in the room. And yet, most of her time and energy was spent trying to be the best possible scientist, trying to carve a path of herself and amount of something. The idea of something dismissing her work and her feeling this cold-heartedly cut deep, which is why her response was so immature. It was almost fatal. Olive, well, fuck you, Adam. She immediately regretted it, but for some reason she couldn't bring herself to send an apology. It wasn't until 20 minutes later that she realized that Adam wasn't going to reply. A warning popped up on the upper part of her screen, informing her that her battery was at 5%. With a deep sigh, Olive stood up from her bed and looked around the room in search of her charger. Now go right. Got it. Malcolm's finger flicked the turn signal lever. A clicking sound filled the small car. Going right? No, don't listen to Jamie. Turn left. Jamie leaned forward and sweated Anne's arm. Malcolm, trust me. Anne has never been to the farm. It's on the right. Google Maps say left. Google Maps is wrong. What do I do? Malcolm made a face in the rear view mirror. Left, right. All, what do I do? In the back seat, Olive looked up from the car window and shrugged. Try right. If it's wrong, we will just turn around. She shot Anne a quickly, apologetic glance, but she and Jeremy were too busy mock glaring at each other to notice. Malcolm grimaced. We will be late. God, I hate these stupid picnics. We are like. Olive glanced at the car's block. 1 hour later already. I think we can add 10 minutes to that. I just hope there's some food left. Her stomach had been growling for the past 2 hours, and there was no way everyone in the car hadn't noticed. After her argument with Adam 3 days ago, she had been tempted to just skip the picnic, hole herself up in the lab, and continue with what she had been doing the whole weekend, ignoring the fact that she had told him to fuck off, and with every little reason. She could use the time to work on Tom's report, which was proving to be trickier and more time consuming than she had initially thought, probably because Olive couldn't forget how much was at stake and kept rerunning analysis and agonizing over every single sentence. But she had changed her mind last minute, telling herself that she had promised Adam that they had put on a show for the department chair. It would be unfair of her to back out after he had done more than his share of the deal when it came to convince Anne. That was, of course, in the very unlikely case that he still wanted anything to do with Olive. Don't worry, Malcolm, Anne said. We will get there eventually. If anyone asks, let's just say that a mountain lion attacked us. God, why it is so hot. I brought sunblock, by the way, SPF 30 and 15. No one is going anywhere before putting it on. In the back seat, Olive and Jeremy exchanged a resigned look, well acquainted with Anne's sunscreen obsession. The picnic was the full swing when they finally arrived, as crowded as most academic events with free food. Olive made a beeline for the tables and waved at Dr. Aslan, who was sitting in the shade of a giant oak with other faculty members. Dr. Aslan waved back, no doubt pleased to note that her authorities extended to commandeering her grads' free time on top of the 80 hours a week they already spent in the lab. Olive smiled weakly in a valiant attempt not to look restful, grabbed a cluster of white grapes and popped one into her mouth while letting her gaze wander around the fields. Anne was right. This September was uncommonly hot. There were people everywhere sitting on the lounge chairs, lying down in the grass, walking in and out of the barns, all enjoying the weather. A few were eating from plastic plates on folding tables close to the main house, and there were at least 3 games going on. A version of football with the players standing in a circle, a soccer match, and something that involved a frisbee and over a dozen half-dressed dudes. What are they even playing? Olive asked Anne. She spotted Dr. Rodriguez tackle something from immunology and looked back to the almost empty table, cringing. Slim pickings was all that was left. Olive wanted a sandwich, a bag of chips, anything. Ultimate frisbee, I think. I don't know. Did you put on sunblock? You're wearing a tank top and shorts, so you really should. Olive bit into another grape. You Americans and your fake sports. I'm pretty sure there are Canadian tournaments of ultimate frisbee too. You know what's not fake? What? Melanoma. Put on some sunscreen. I will, Mom. Olive smiled. Can I eat first? Eat what? There's nothing left. Oh, there's some cornbread over there. Oh, cool. Pass it over. Don't eat the cornbread, guys. Jeremy's head popped up between Olive and Anne. Jess said that a pharmacology first year sneezed all over it. Where did Malcolm go? Parking. Holy shit. Olive looked up from her perusal of the table, alarmed by the urgency in Anne's tone. What? Just holy shit. Yeah, what? Holy shit. You mentioned that already because holy shit. She glanced around, trying to figure out what was going on. What is. Oh, there's Malcolm. Maybe he found something to eat. Is that Carlson? Olive was already walking towards Malcolm to find something eatable and skip the whole sunscreen nonsense altogether. But when he heard Adam's name, she stopped dead in her tracks. Or maybe it wasn't Adam's name, but the way Anne was saying it. What? Where? Jeremy pointed at the ultimate frisbee crowd. That's him, right? Shirtless. Holy shit. Anne repeated, her vocabulary suddenly pretty limited, given her 20-something years of education. Is that a six-pack? Jeremy blinked. Might even be an six-pack. Are those his real shoulders? Anne asked. Did he have shoulder enhancement surgery? That must be how he used to make Arthur great, Jeremy said. I don't think shoulders like that exist in nature. God, is that Carlson's chest? Malcolm leaned his chin over Olive's shoulder. Was that thing under his shirt while he was ripping my dissertation proposal a new one? All? Why didn't you say that he was shredded? Olive just stood there, rooted to the ground, arm dangling uselessly at her sides. Because I didn't know, because I had no idea, or maybe she had a bit from seeing him push that truck the other day. Though she had been trying to suppress that particular mental image. Unbelievable. Anne pulled Olive's hand towards herself, overturning it to a squirt, a healthy dose of lotion on her palm. Here, put this on your shoulders and your legs and your face too. You're probably at high risk for all sort of skin stuff. Freckles, MC Freckles' face. Jar, you too. Olive nodded numbly and began to massage the sunscreen into her arm and thigh. She breathed in the smell of coconut oil, trying hard not to think about Adam and about the fact that he really did look like that, mostly failing, but high. Are there actual studies? Jeremy asked. Anne was pulling her hair up in a bun. On the link between freckles and skin cancer? I don't know. Feels like there would be. True. I wanna know now. Hold on. Is there Wi-Fi here? All? Do you have internet? Olive wiped her hands on a napkin that looked mostly unused. I left my phone in Malcolm's car. She turned her head away from Anne and Jeremy, who were now studying screen of Jeremy's iPhone until she had a good view of the ultimate frisbee group. 14 men and 0 women. It probably had to do with the general excess of testosterone in STEM programs. At least half the players were faculty of postdocs. Adam, of course, and Tom and Dr. Rodriguez and several others from pharmacology, all equally shirtless, though no, not equal at all. There was really nothing equal about Adam. Olive wasn't like this. She really was not. She could count the number of guys she had been this viscerally attracted to on one hand. Actually, on one finger. And at the moment said guy was running towards her because Tom Benton, bless his heart, had just thrown the frisbee way too clumsily. and it was now in the patch of grass approximately 10 feet from Olive. And Adam, shirtless Adam, just happened to be the one closest to where it landed. Oh, check out this paper. Jeremy sounded excited. Khalisi et al. 2013. It's a meta analysis. Cutaneous markers of photo damage and risk of basal cell carcinoma of the skin in cancer epidemiology, biomarkers, and prevention. Jeremy faced pumped. Olive, you're listening to this? Nope, no, she was not. She was mostly trying to empty her brain and her eyes too of her fake boyfriend and the sudden warm ache in her stomach. She just wished she were elsewhere, that she were temporarily blind and deaf. Here, these solar lenticines had weak but positive association with basal cell carcinoma with odd ratios around 1.5. Okay, I don't like this. Jamie, hold the phone. I'm giving Olive more sunscreen. Here's SPF 50. It's probably what you need. Olive tore her eyes from Adam's chest, now alarmingly close, and turned around, stepping away from Anne. Wait, I already put some on. All Anne told her with that sensible, motherly tone she used whenever Olive slipped and confused that she mostly got her veggie servings from French fries or that she washed her colors and whites in the same load. You know the literature. I don't know the literature and neither do you. You just know one line from one abstract. And Anne grabbed Olive's hand again and poured half a gallon of lotion in it. So much of it that Olive had to use her left palm to prevent it from spilling over until she was just standing there like an idiot, her hands cupped like a beggar as she half drowned in goddamn sunscreen. Here you go. Anne smiled brightly. Now you can protect yourself from basal cell carcinoma, which frankly sounds awful. Olive would have face palmed if she had had the freedom to move her upper limbs. I hate sunscreen. It's sticky and it makes me smell like a pino colada, and this is way too much. Just put on as much as your skin will absorb, especially around the freckled areas. The rest you can share with someone. Okay, Anne, then you take some. You too, Jeremy. You are a ginger, for God's sake. A redhead with no freckles, though. He smiled proudly, like he had created his genotype all on his own. And I already put on a tone. Thanks, babe. He leaned forward for a brief kiss to Anne's cheek, which almost devolved into a make-out session. Olive tried not to sigh. Guys, what do I do with this? Just find someone else. Where did Malcolm go? Jeremy snorted. Over there with Jude. Jude? Anne frowned. Yeah, that neuro fifth year. The MD PhD? Are they dating or... Guys, it took Olive all she had not to yell. I have no mobility. Please fix this sunscreen mess you created. God all. Anne rolled her eyes. You are so dramatic. Sometimes. Hang on. She waved at someone behind Olive, and when she spoke, her voice was much louder. Hi, Dr. Carlson. Have you put on sunscreen yet? In the span of a microsecond, Olive's entire brain burst into flames and then crumbled into a pile of ashes. Just like that. 100 billion neurons, 1000 billion glial cells. And who knew how many milliliters of cerebrospinal fluid just ceased to exist. The rest of her body was not doing very well either, since Olive could feel all her organs shut down in real time. From the very beginning of her acquaintance with Adam, there had been about 10 instances of Olive wishing to drop dead on the spot, for the earth to open and swallow her whole, for a cataclysm to hit and spare her from the embarrassment of their interactions. This time, though, it felt as though the end of the world might happen for real. Don't turn around. What's left on her central nervous system told her. Pretend you didn't hear Anne. Will this into non-existence? But it was impossible. There was this triangle of swords formed by Olive and Anne in front of her, and Adam probably surely standing behind her. It wasn't as if Olive had a choice, any choice, especially when Adam, who couldn't possibly imagine the depraved direction of Anne's thoughts, who couldn't possibly see the bucketful of sunscreen that had taken residence in Olive's hands, said, "No." "Well, shut." Olive spun around, and there he was, sweaty, holding a frisbee in his left hand, and so very, very shirtless. "Perfect then," Anne said, sounding so cheaper. "Olive has way too much and was wondering what to do with it. She will put some on you." "No, no, 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 I can't," she hissed at Anne. "It would be highly inappropriate." "Why?" Anne blinked at her innocently. "I put sunscreen on Jeremy all the time. Look." She squirted lotion on her hand and haphazardly slapped it across Jeremy's face. "I'm putting sunscreen on my boyfriend because I don't want him to get menorrhea. Am I inappropriate?" Olive was going to murder her. Olive was going to make her lick every drop of this stupid sunscreen and watch her writhe in pain as she slowly died of oxybenzone poisoning. Later, though, for now, Adam was looking at her, expression completely unreadable. And Olive would have apologized. She would have crawled under the table. She would have at least waved at him. But all she could do was stare and notice that even though the last time they had talked she had insulted him, he didn't really seem angry, just thoughtful and a little confused as he looked between Olive's face and the small lake of white goop that now lived in her hands, probably trying to figure out if there was a way to get out of this latest shit show, and then finally just giving up on it. He nodded once, minutely, and turned around, the muscles in his back shifting as he threw Dr. Rodriguez the frisbee and yelled, "I'm taking 5." Which Olive assumed meant that they were actually doing this. Of course, they damn were, because this was her life and these were her poor, moronic, harebrained choices. "Hi," Adam said to her once they were closer. He was looking at her hands, at the way she had to hold them in front of her body like a supplicant behind her. Anne and Jamie were no doubt ogling them. "Hi." She was wearing flip-flops and he had sneakers on. And he was always tall, but right now he towered over her. It put her eyes right in front of his back and nope, not doing that. "Can you turn around?" He hesitated for a moment, but then he did, uncharacteristically obedient, which ended up resolving none of Olive's problems since his back was in no way less broad or impressive than his chest. "Can you duck a bit?" Adam bent his head until his shoulders were still abnormally high but somewhat easily to reach. As she lifted her right hand, some of the lotion dripped to the ground. "Where it belongs," she thought savagely, and then she was doing it, this thing that she had never thought she would ever do, putting sunscreen on Adam Carlson. It wasn't her first time touching him, therefore she shouldn't have been surprised by how hard his muscles were, or that there was no give to his flesh. Olive remembered the way he had pushed the truck, imagined that he could probably bench press 3 times her weight, and then ordered herself to stop because that was not an appropriate train of thought. Still, the issue remained that there was nothing between her hand and his skin. He was hot from the sun. His shoulders relaxed and mobile under her touch. Even in public, close as they were, it felt like something intimate was happening. So, her mouth was dry. This might be a good time to mention how sorry I am that we keep getting stuck in these situations. It's fine. I really am, though. It's not your fault. There was an edge in his voice. Are you okay? Yup. He nodded, though the movement seemed taut, which had Olive realized that maybe he was not as relaxed as she had initially thought. How much do you hate this on a scale from 1 to correlation equals causation? He surprised her by chuckling, though he still sounded strained. I don't hate it, and it's not your fault. Because I know this is the worst possible thing, and it isn't, Olive. He turned a bit to look her in the eyes, a mixed amusement and the odd tension. These things are going to keep on happening. Right. His fingers brushed softly against her left palm as he stole a bit of her sunscreen for his front, which, all in all, was for the best. She really didn't want to be massaging lotion into his chest in front of 70% of her PhD program. Not to mention her boss, since Dr. Aslan was probably watching them like a hawk. Or maybe she wasn't. Olive had no intention of turning around to check. She had rather live in less than blissful ignorance. Mostly because you hang out with some really noisy people. She burst out laughing. I know, believe me, I'm really grating befriending Anne right now, kind of contemplating assassination her to tell the truth. She moved to his shoulder blades. He had a lot of small moles and freckles, and she wondered exactly how inappropriate it would be if she played connect the dots on them with her fingers. She could just imagine the amazing pictures it would reveal. But hi, the long term benefits of sunscreen have been proven by scientists, and you are pretty pale. Here, dug a bit more so I can get your neck. She walked around him to get to the front part of his shoulders. He was so big. She was going to have to use all this stupid lotion. Might even need to ask Anne for more. At least the department chair is getting a show and you look like you're having fun. He glanced pointedly at the way her hand was spreading sunscreen on his collarbone. Olive's cheeks burned. No, I mean, not because I am. I meant you look like you're having a good time playing frisbee or whatever. He made a face. Beats chit-chatting for sure. She laughed. That makes sense. I bet that's why you're so fit. You played lot of sports growing up because it got you out of talking with people. It also explains why now that you are an adult, your personality is so. Olive stopped short. Adam lifted one eyebrow. Antagonistic and unapproachable. Crap. I didn't say that. You just typed it. I am sorry. I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to. She pressed her lip together, flustered. Then she noticed that the corners of his eyes were crinkly. Damn you. She pinched him lightly on the underside of his arm. He yelped and smiled wider, which made her wonder what he would do if she retaliated by writing her name with sunscreen on his chest, just enough for him to only get a tan around it. She tried to imagine his face after taking off his t-shirt, finding the 5 letters printed on his flesh in the reflection of his bathroom mirror. The expression he had made, whether he had touched them with his fingertips. Crazy, she told herself. This whole thing, it's driving you crazy. So he's handsome and you find him attractive. Big deal, who cares? She wiped her mostly lotion free hands down the columns of his biceps and took a step back. You're good to go, Dr. Antagonist. He smelled of fresh sweat himself and coconut. Olive wasn't going to get to talk with him again until Wednesday, and why the thought came with an odd pang in her chest. She had no clue. Thanks, and thank Anne, I guess. What do you think she will have us do next time? He shrugged. Hold hands? Feed each other strawberries. A good one. Maybe she will up her game. Fake wedding? Fake buy a house together. Fake sign the mortgage paperwork? Olive laughed, and the way he looked at her, kind and curious and patient, she must be hallucinating it. Her head was not right. She should have brought a sun hat. Hi, Olive. She tore her gaze from Adams and noticed Tom approaching. He too was shirtless and clearly fit and had a large number of abs that were defined enough to be easily counted. And yet, for some reason, it did absolutely nothing for Olive. Hi, Tom. She smiled, even though she was a little irritated by the interruption. Loved your talk the other day. It was good, wasn't it? Did Adam tell you about our change of plans? She tilted her head. Change of plans? We have been making great progress on the grad. So we are going to Boston next week to finish setting up stuff on the Harvard side. Oh, that's great. She turned to Adam. How long will you be gone? Just a few days. His tone was quiet. Olive felt relief that it wasn't going to be longer for indiscernible reasons. Would you be able to send me your report by Saturday, Olive? Tom asked. Then I will have the weekend to look it over and we will discuss it while I'm still here. Her brain exploded in a flurry of panic and bright red alert signs, but she managed to keep her smile in place. Yeah, of course, I will send it to you on Saturday. Oh God, she was going to have to work around the clock. She wasn't going to get any sleep this week. She was going to have to bring her laptop to the toilet and write while she peed. No problem at all, she added, leaning even harder into her lie. Perfect. Tom winked at her, or maybe just squinted in the sun. You going back to play? He asked Adam, and when Adam nodded, Tom spun around and headed back into the game. Adam hesitated for just a second longer. Then he nodded at Olive and left. She tried hard not to stare at his back as he rejoined his team, which seems to be overjoyed to have him again. Clearly, sports were another thing Adam Carlson excelled at, unfairly so. She didn't even have to check to know that Anne and Jeremy and pretty much everyone else had been staring at them for the past 5 minutes. She fished a seltzer can out of the nearest cooler, reminding herself that this was exactly what they wanted from this arrangement, and then found a spot under an oak tree next to her friends. All this sunscreens first, and now they were sitting in the shade. Go figure. She wasn't even that hungry anymore, a small miracle courtesy of having to apply sunscreen to her fake boyfriend very publicly. So, what's he like? Anne asked. She was lying down with her head on Jeremy's lap. Above her, Malcolm was staring at the frisbee players, probably swooning over how pretty Holden Rodriguez looked in the sun. Carlson, oh, actually, Anne smirked. I meant to say Adam. You call him Adam, right? Or do you perfect Dr. Carlson? If you guys role play with schoolgirl uniforms and rules, I totally want to hear about it. Anne. Yeah, how is Carlson? Jeremy asked. I'm assuming he is different with you than with us. Or does he also tell you repeatedly that the font for the labels of your X and Y's is irritatingly small? Olive smiled into her knees because she could totally imagine Adam saying that. Could almost hear his voice in her head. No, not yet at least. What's he like then? She opened her mouth to answer, thinking it would be easier. Of course, it was everything but. He's just, we don't, answered. There must be more to him than meets the eye. He's so moody and negative and angry, and he's not. Olive interrupted and then regretted it a little because it wasn't entirely true. He can be, but he cannot be too. If you say no, Anne seemed inconvenienced. How did you even start dating? You never told me. Oh, Olive looked away and let her gaze wander. Adam must have just done something noteworthy because he and Dr. Rodriguez were exchanging hi fi. She noticed Tom staring at her from the field and waved at him with a smile. We just talked and then go coffee and then. How does that even happen? Jeremy interrupted, clearly skeptical. How does one decide to say yes to a date with Carlson? Because seeing him half naked. Anyway, you kiss him, and then next thing you know, he is saving your ass and he's buying you scones and calling you smart ass in weirdly affectionate tone. And even when he is being his moody asshole self, he doesn't seem to be that bad or bad at all. And then you tell him to fuck off over the phone and possibly ruin everything. He just asked me out and I said yes. Though it was obviously a lie, someone with the Lancet publication and back muscles that defined would never ask someone like Olive out. So you didn't meet on Tinder? What? No. Because that's what people are saying. I'm not on Tinder. Is Carlson? No, maybe, yes. Olive managed her temples. Who's saying that we met on Tinder? Actually, rumors that they met on Craigslist. Malcolm sat distractedly, waving at someone. She followed his gaze and noticed that he was staring at Holden Rodriguez, who appeared to be smiling and waving back. Olive frowned. Then she parsed what Malcolm had just said. Craigslist? Malcolm shrugged, not saying that I believed it. Who are people and why are they even talking about us? Anne reached up to pat Olive on the shoulder. Don't worry, the gossip about you and Carlson died down after Dr. Moss and Sloane had that very public argument about people disposing of blood samples in the ladies' restroom. Well, for the most part, hi. She sat up and wrapped an arm around Olive, pulling her in for an embrace. She smelled like coconut. Stupid sunscreen. Chill. I know some people have been weird about this, but Jeremy and Malcolm and I are just happy for you all. Anne smiled at her reassuringly, and Olive felt herself relaxed. Mostly that's you are finally getting laid.